I did criticize the president because of our undercutting of what was a stalwart ally, the Shah of Iran. And I am not at all convinced that he was that far out of line with his people, or that they wanted that to happen. The Shah had done our bidding and carried our load in the Middle East for quite some time. And I did think that it was a blot on our record that we let him down. Have things gotten better? The Shah, whatever he might have done, was building low-cost housing, had taken land away from the mullahs and was distributing it to the peasants so they could be landowners, things of that kind. But we turned it over to a maniacal fanatic who has slaughtered thousands and thousands of people, calling it executions.
None of the Shah's comments raised hackles like his blast at the American Jewish lobby. Its influence, he claimed, went all the way to the top.
Surely, Your Majesty, you're not telling me that the Jewish lobby in the United States pulls the strings of the presidency?
Not entirely, but I think even a little too much, even for Israel interests.
You think the Jewish lobby in the United States is too powerful for the interests of Israel?
I think so. Sometimes they are disserving the interests of Israel because they're pushing around too many people.
Why would the President of the United States pay attention to that lobby?
They are strong.
Strong in what sense?
They are controlling many things.
Controlling what?
Newspapers, medias,
Your Majesty.
banks, finances, and I'm going to stop there.
Well, now wait just a second. You really do believe that the Jewish community in the United States is that powerful? They make the media reflect their view of foreign policy?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They do not report? We do not report honestly?
Don't mix things, please. I don't say the media. I say in the media they have people. Not the entire media. Some newspapers will only reflect their views, yes.
No. The New York Times, for instance, is owned by the Salzburger family, who are Jewish. Are you suggesting that the New York Times is biased in its treatment of the question of Zionism, Israel's existence, the United States' relationship with the Arab world?
I will have to put all the articles of the New York Times written on this subject and draw the conclusion. You can put this to the computer and it will answer you.
What you're saying is that, yes, you do believe.
Well, let's wait for the answer of the computer.
Washington Post.
The same.
The networks.
Less.
I must say you are speaking with your characteristic candor.
Yes, if you like. I try to be candid. I have always been.
I've just returned from Iran and an encounter with possibly the most powerful single individual in the world today.
I have only 2 arms. But the strength comes because what I represent to my people, if they like it or not. You can't keep on the way you were doing because the old way was a little exaggerated.
Do you think our inflation in the Western world is our own fault?
Not mine, anyway, because it started well before we increased the price of oil. You built your progress and your affluence at our expense. So you can't say that we increased the price of oil all of a sudden, because for 20 and some odd years, maybe 24 years, we have just been terribly exploited in a very mean way.
But weren't you a kind of partner to that exploitation when you signed the oil agreement of 1954, for instance?
Well, we had no choice. What else? We were starving, and we had to start doing something to build the country. We had no choice. They dictated to us, they decreased the posted price of oil when all the price of commodities in the world were on the increase. And they were telling us, well, take it or leave it, and we had to take it. Now things have been put right, and the price of oil is still so low that you have not yet started to mine your coal mines and liquefy the coal and gasify the coal, or even go in a big way in the development of your nuclear energy and find any other sources of energy.
But how much does it actually cost for your country to produce oil? In Canada, it costs us a great deal because we have to get it out of the Arctic. We have so many natural barriers to it. But you're just pumping it out of the sand as you've always pumped it out.
I don't think that this is a very fair question, because you are paying more your workers, so you have the right to ask more for your oil. And furthermore, then you are blessed with other things. For instance, you can grow wheat so cheap because you don't need any irrigation. You get all the water from the skies. You don't have to spend any money on the irrigation of that, when we have to do it. And that's why you and the Americans are feeding the world with your wheat, and all of a sudden your wheat that was sold for $60 a few years ago, you sold it for $245 last year or the year before. So your question, I don't think, is fair.
What you're trying to say is that we are asking more for our commodities the same way that you are.
Yes, exactly. And why? I don't know why you think that you are superior.
Do you think that we generally suffer from that, the feeling that we are?
I think that you are, so far, maybe, but probably you will change.
Why will we change?
Because your eyes are opened. Fundamentally, you are not unjust people. You have just been living in an unjust world for so long, but you will accommodate with the new realities of the world. We won't be pushed around. We don't wish a war. But if it is imposed on us, we will not shrink. For the next 20, 25 years, it's absolutely vital for us, because the Straits of Hormuz, which is the entrance to the Persian Gulf, is our jugular vein. We live by that. And furthermore, our forces which are there are not just for the Persian Gulf. They're just stationed there. They could serve in any direction. Nobody could invade us without being forced to crush us, because we are not going to surrender. What excuse will you have to come to these oil-producing countries? It will be barbaric, without any precedent in the world, the worst imperialistic movement that the world had ever known. How could you do that? And it's strange that it's absolutely normal for other countries to have even more arms than we have. And you start to talk about our force when you find it so obvious and normal for other countries. I can't quite make this out.
Is it perhaps that the Western countries are just not used to thinking of Iran as a major world power in any terms whatsoever, whether it's dealing about oil or whether it's talking about an army?
Yes, maybe you're right. But they will have to cope with this development soon.
You're noted as a very strong authority figure in Iran, and yet you're extremely popular with the people. Somebody said to me that if there were a referendum held tomorrow, 90% of the people would vote yes for the Shah and all his policies. Why then do you need to be so authoritarian if you have this kind of popular support and warmth towards you?
Well, first of all, it's more than 90%. Secondly, what do you call authority? To enforce the law? To make such fantastic, drastic changes without bloodshed? If you call this authority, I don't think that my people mind that. They want it.
It's been said that there are some 20,000 political prisoners in Iran.
That's not true. We have about 3,000 and not more. Some people have even said that there are between 25,000 and 100,000 political prisoners.
You deny this?
do I deny it? First of all, it's our business and not any of their business. But the truth, the reality is that we have not more than 3,000.
And how do you define political prisoner?
These Marxists.
Does torture happen in Iran?
Well, this is a question that was put to me more than once, and which I don't like at all, because it's so ridiculous that I don't have to answer that. But for the sake of this interview, I will say that we don't have to torture people. This is the way that unsophisticated organizations were doing things. We are as sophisticated as you are now.
Sophisticated in methods of interrogation.
Yes.
So that torture, fingernail pulling, people being toasted in wire mesh, which we were reading about in the English papers.
English papers. There is one paper, and I find this disgusting. And I don't really appreciate at all a serious organization like you repeating trash that you can see in one paper in one country. Why do you have even to repeat that?
It has, because it's been very widely reported, and the Sunday Times in Canada anyway is not considered to be a trashy paper.
That article was trash if you read it from the top to the bottom.
So you categorically deny that?
Yes, and I don't have to deny it because it's none of your business, but I do.
You've often said that you have never sentenced to death anyone who has attempted to kill you. How many attempts have there been?
One, but he was killed by the security people. Then the second, 5, 6 people were involved. They were all pardoned by myself. And indirectly, we know that there have been some attempts which did not materialize. And they have been also pardoned. And this has been my policy and probably will always be my policy. I forgive when anything concerns me personally. And I can't do it when it concerns the country and the state.
Are you ever afraid when you make public appearances?
Never. First of all, I'm not afraid of anything. Secondly, I know very well that I will be around as long as it has been written.
Probably, and maybe more, because we are going to invest in the UK.
Have you been able to assure the British government that you'll be investing much of the money we pay you for your oil in British industry?
Sure, because I think that our country in the next 10 years will be what you are today. In the next 25 years, according to other people, I'm not saying that, will be among the 5 most prosperous countries of the world. When you become something like that, you start to act accordingly. That is, on a world basis, and obviously without any complexes, and understanding the whole political or geopolitics of the world.
The increasing price of oil is going to hit our balance of payments hard and maybe even cause our economy to stop growing altogether for a year or two. Is this really what you want?
Just the opposite. That's why what we have decided and the consequent decisions will alleviate, for a very good part, your balance of payments. And I know that you might eventually do other kind of deal of that sort with other oil-producing countries. But don't forget that in 3 years' time, you will be a big oil producer yourselves. You might be a member of our club. So the picture is not as bad as it seems to be. Maybe for 1 year, 2 years, you will have some difficulties. First of all, I'm sure that you will overcome it. I'm sure that you will get out of the present difficult situation. You British have this quality of rallying around the flag, the country, when really it starts to be a little dangerous. I'm sure that you will do it.
But may I put it this way? Many people watching you tonight, watching you talking to us now, many people in Britain, some of them cold, some of them quite poor, will be asking themselves what it is that you and certainly some of your Arab counterparts, sheikhs and rulers and governments, have against them. Does it in any way serve your interests
to
make a British economy suffer?
Why against? First of all, it's not British economy. If you want to say anything, it should be the world economy. And this is not against, we're just defending our chips. Because for such a long time, we have just been, exploited, I can't say that. And why don't you say that when the price of wheat was augmented by 300%, they had something against us? We had to buy it, or soybean, or steel products, or petrochemical products, which in some cases have augmented by 30 times. So did you have anything against us when you augmented those prices? Or what I buy from you, even weapons, the price that you are charging today is not what you were charging 2 months ago. It's increasing. Have you something against us?
Have you anything in principle against the system in Britain and other Western countries?
Not really against. But I must tell you my opinion. If you continue this way, a permissive, undisciplined society, you are going to blow up. And in matter of fact...
How do you mean blow up? I'm not quite clear what you mean by that.
Well, you will go bankrupt. You work not enough. You try to get too much money for the little work that you are putting up. And this cannot continue. It can continue for a few months, maybe 1 or 2 years, but not forever.
You're not going to help us not to go bankrupt if you put the price of oil in.
I won't be a good friend of yours if I did help you being not aware of the seriousness of the situation.
Do you then see oil as in some way a weapon that can correct us and our system?
Not really. But I was trying to defend my own interests. But I think at the same time it is serving this cause to maybe have the effect of a shock on you and to realize and wipe your eyes and see that, well, to face the future you will have to change your ways.
How particularly would you like us to change?
Discipline, more work.
Do you see any conflict between the social and economic demands of your people, about 50% of them can't read or write yet, and the amount you spend on weapons?
No, because we couldn't spend more either on illiteracy or other social things, because first of all we wouldn't have the teachers, and then for instance over hospitals wouldn't have the doctors, the trained nurses, and it could create inflation too. Can I say that this year we are going to have a 40% national growth at constant prices, which is more than twice or almost 3 times the world record which was held by the Japanese?
Do you think as your country gets more prosperous you will be able to restrain the demands of your people for more of the kind of democracy we have in Britain?
But who says that my people are demanding the democracy that you have in Britain?
Don't you think that history indicates that that does come with growing prosperity? Are there any developed, powerful countries in this world with hereditary monarchies like your own?
Well, yes, but not necessarily, because our tradition are just on the opposite way. The people and their king are so close that they feel as the member of the same family. They have, I think, the respect that at least families or children used to have for their father.
What you're saying, Your Majesty, is that father knows best. What if you get a leader here who does not have your wisdom, your compassion?
Then the relationship between that leader and his people will not be
the one existing between me and my people.
Well,
He will become another leader, as we had many in our country, who was kicked out by, well, my father kicked the former king here because he had no contact with his people.
and of course there are some dissidents, very small in number here, who would like to kick you out. 12 of them are in jail, and a couple of them, or 3 of them, are going to be put to death.
And 6 more will be shot, but because they are betraying their country, not because they're against me.
And they're betraying their country by?
Being Marxists and owing their allegiance to not their country.
You're a firm man, sir.
It's still needed. I can forgive those who try to kill me and even abduct my wife and my child, but not those who betray the country.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir?
No, I must admit that it's the first time I hear that.
Truly?
Yes? What is it?
Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say?
Yes, why not?
Really?
Yes, why not?
I have your permission?
Yes, sure.
You won't send me to the Savak if I ask?
No, I would spare you this terrible ordeal of going through torture.
This secret study portrays the Shah as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests.
So how could I be your man, your agent,
How do you mean?
safeguarding your interests?
Well, it says that the Shah is an uncertain ally. His dreams of glory apparently...
I know. So you would like me to be your stooge?
Do you want me to go on, or shall I forget about this, Your
Well,
Majesty?
some funny points, why not?
So he went on to quote to him from the CIA profile. His dreams of glory, it said, apparently exceed his ability to finance them. When his oil revenues run out in an estimated 2 decades, he might use his new military power to seize some neighboring oil fields.
Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?
Well, the question is that I have now that you mentioned, I have seen that appearing in papers, but I think it's lots of imagination in that.
Your Majesty, in our newspapers now, in our country, there is a great deal of comment, and there are reports today about our CIA aiding friendly nations, giving them money. Does the CIA play any part in this country today?
Sure.
What?
Gathering information. We don't mind.
Do they, in any case, give this country money?
Money for what?
Because
If we don't give you money, you are not going to give us money. We are giving you a lot of money in buying your goods.
Well, what I was talking of is since it is coming out that we have been giving money to other friendly nations to help them in one manner or another.
Well, maybe you had to. Maybe you had to.
Tonight, part 2 of our interview with the Shah of Iran. On this part of the interview, taped last week in his office in Tehran, we discussed oil and arms. The Shah said that his oil production is now up to normal, partially because of our need for oil during this cold winter. He insists that the price of oil must stay as it is or go even higher. 1, because the oil is Iran's one natural resource and its revenue is necessary to bring up the standard of living in the country. And 2, to force us to look for other energy resources. With much of his oil revenue, the Shah has turned Iran into one of the most heavily armed nations in the world. The big question is why? For offense or defense? The Shah says that Iran was invaded in both World War I and II, and he will not let it happen a 3rd time. Iran is bordered on the north by the Soviet Union and Turkey, on the east by Iraq, and across the Persian Gulf by Saudi Arabia. But we asked the Shah just whom is it he fears, whom is he looking at?
We are looking what our neighbors have.
Are your neighbors as armed as you?
Per capita, per ratio, some of them more.
Are you not concerned then about an arms race?
Well, if this is what is imposed on us, we have no other choice. What else? To surrender?
perhaps to come to some understanding where you buy less and they buy less, perhaps the kind of thing that we're trying to do with the Soviet Union.
Can you? That all depends. If you can, that would be a very good example for others to try to do the same.
Your Majesty, do you see any circumstances in the near future under which you would reduce the price of oil?
Why should we do it? This is the only thing we have. Do you know, Miss Walters, that since we raised the price of oil, you have increased the prices of your goods and commodities at least by 400 to 500%? Do you know the price we pay for the spare parts that we need from your country?
You mean we have raised it correspondingly to your
oil? Oh,
yes. When you buy military equipment from us, have we raised our prices on that very much in the last few years? We have.
Especially the spare parts.
If we lowered our prices of those materials, the spare parts of the military equipment, would you lower your oil prices?
I had proposed to you many years back. I am ready to deal with you on a fixed price basis.
And we said no?
Obviously, because we could never match your inflation.
Your Majesty, if now our country said, okay, we will charge you less for military equipment, we will charge you less for commodities, if you will bring down your price of oil, could you do that now?
On a bilateral basis. That price will be lowered for you, who can propose this to me.
Mm-hmm. Just between your country and our country?
On a bilateral basis, yes.
Your Majesty, if there should be more trouble in the Middle East, if there were another oil embargo, what would you do?
We have not participated in the embargo in the first place, and we will not under any circumstances. We separate oil from politics. And in addition to this, the West is our friend.
You're saying you do what every country does.
Sure.
If torture is necessary, you torture.
Not the torture in the old sense of torturing people, twisting their arms and doing this and that. But there are intelligent ways of questioning now.
Well, they talk about psychological and physical torture.
Physical, I don't believe.
Not
anymore. Maybe in the old days, maybe.
I talked just today to a man whom I believe, who told about torture.
He was tortured?
Yes.
And you believe that he was tortured?
Yes.
How many years ago?
Within, I want to be very careful, not yesterday.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
The word has gone out to stop it.
To stop what?
Torture.
But a long time ago, yes.
I had said on some previous occasions that we needed 10 years here to try to make this country a kind of a model state, a country where absolute justice will prevail, not only in the courts, but social justice too.
Iran was a dubious democracy, with the Shah as king, the granter of all rights, with all the power, with special privileges for his friends. They say you can't get a contract here, and everybody's here. You know that. Vendors, contractors, without a little of truth.
I think it's the most unjust thing that is said. It's just jealousy. For instance, the military purchases, it's government to government. If there is a corruption, it's from your government or the government of every other country from which we buy. So this is the unfairest and most unjust thing that I have heard.
Is it possible, Your Majesty, that because you are so busy and because you have so many things occupying you, that it could be going on behind your back, sir?
No. It's impossible because I have at least 5 inspectorate organizations. One, sooner or later, they will be caught. And, let me say this. First of all, I think this is a cheap accusation. Second, it is less than anything that you have in your so-called permissive society.
You mean you think there is more corruption in the United States than in...
Well, especially in your country, yes.
Well, let me put it to you that Mr. Callahan doesn't work in an office like yours. How do you respond to that?
Mr. Callahan is the Prime Minister. I'm the King of Kings of a country which has 2,500 years of monarchy. But this cannot be also compared to Buckingham Palace. The price of Buckingham Palace is 100 times more than the price of this one.
I believe you have more than one palace around this country. So has the Queen, you might say.
In the old days, you, British, and others who had influence here, you could change the prime ministers as you wished. Are you sorry for that time that you have lost? Do you want the same thing? To manipulate our internal affairs? We won't let you.
Is it not the high price of oil, that noble petroleum the Shah likes to talk about, that is at the root of the world's economic chaos?
Not true. Because according to the same statistics, the price of oil has been responsible in the United States for 0.5% of your inflation, and in the countries of Europe for 2%. Japan, hardly a little more. That's all.
And the huge sums of money piling up with the oil producers?
Well, it's new to you. It's new. How could these strange people living, it's not our case, but living on sand have such money? It's maybe a little shock at the beginning, but you are going to get used to it.
Candidly, Your Majesty, is there no element, not of revenge, because that is not a noble impulse, but at least some element of satisfaction in seeing the giants of the West in some disarray?
Well, no, because their disarray is, I think, needs a restructure of their society.
The brown-eyed peoples are teaching the blue-eyed peoples something, is that?
Well, no, we are not teaching something. The blue-eyed people have to wake up.
Wake up to?
From the complacency for this torpor in which they put themselves by taking maybe too many sleeping pills.
How much pressure has there been from the United States to keep this oil rise down?
Oh, a lot.
What would they like to see, or what would they find acceptable?
Nothing. They would like to expect us not to rise the price of oil when they themselves increase the price of steel, for instance.
Would you think anything under 15% was a defeat?
For us?
Yes.
Well, defeat, anything under 40% is defeat. Because this is the depreciation of our purchasing power. So I'm not thinking in order of defeat. It's a kind of coexistence between us and you, who have the goods to deliver, and we have the money, but you have the edge in some cases, and we have the edge in some other cases.
Because the wealth that they have is only oil, and oil will be finished in 20 years. But the troubles will remain with us. Now, this is completely nonsense that we try to establish an empire. To do what?
On this particular price increase that's coming, do you accept a need not to raise the price too high because of the damage it will do to a world that appears not to be getting out of recession as fast as it can hope?
Well, this is one consideration that we have for the world. When the opposite does not exist, because they are imposing on us tremendous inflation.
It's true that when we started to defend our interests, the price of commodities also rocketed up by several 100%. But this cannot continue. If you increase, we increase. If we increase, you increase. We have got to find some solution for this. But if you just say, no, the price of oil must come down because we have decided so, this is not possible.
The special jet from London brought the Chancellor and Mr. Walker direct to St. Moritz. But not for them the joys of winter sports, or the delights of the Cresta Run just up the mountain. The two ministers have come here to jet-set Switzerland to see the Shah of Persia about oil for Britain. The Shah's here for a month, and he consented to break his annual winter holiday to see them. His Majesty was out early this morning in the sun. Every day he leaves his villa early to spend the day skiing, and he often takes the wheel. Queen Farah goes with him most times. They've had the 4 children with them for 3 weeks, but they were packed off to school yesterday. The talks are taking place here in the Hotel Survetta, one of the Shah's favourite haunts. The deal's reported to be worth well over £100 million and is designed to safeguard the better part of Britain's oil supplies for many years to come. In return, we'll be supplying the Iranians with raw material and know-how for the industrial base on which the Shah has so much set his heart. Mr. Barber is also believed to be wanting to persuade the Shah to reinvest some of his enormous oil profits in Britain itself, and so help us offset some of the enormous foreign exchange costs we're going to have to bear. It does seem a very odd place indeed in which to conduct the business of nations, but nowadays that's how things have got to be.
All the things that they call extravagant were, in matter of fact, part of our development program. Telecommunication system, it was planned. A road building, planned. Building of hotels, this is to promote tourism. We know how many countries in the world have developed from almost sheer poverty to be quite rich and affluent just by way of tourism.
I think that we can say very firmly and with absolute certainty that Iran will not only become an industrial nation, but in my assessment, in 12 years' time, enter what we say the era of the great civilization. The era of the great civilization, for those who are interested to know, means a kind of a welfare state where everybody, since he's born until he's dead, will enjoy every kind of social insurances. If there was the daily criticism against our shortages, our weaknesses, and this and that, it's even encouraged. If the criticism is directed against the foundation of the state and to weakening of the state and serving the interests of a foreign country, obviously we are not going to allow that. Why should we? Those who have done it, what advantage have they got from that?
But freedom of opinion in any country and being able to criticize the existing organizations is a fundamental principle of democracy. Mm-hmm. And if Iran lays claim to democracy, then these principles should be honored.
Yes, within the limit of the law. But depends what kind of laws you have. Within the limit of existing laws, obviously. One of our laws is that communism is not allowed. It's banned, so you can't do it. There are not more than 3,300 political prisoners. And political prisoners, it happens to be that all of them are Marxists.
And what does that prove?
Marxism is outlawed in this country. It's illegal.
It's the nature of participation in government that is different here. And that's what people worry about, isn't it, an objective?
We are working in that direction. Maximum participation of all the people in every field, political as well as material. Our workers are getting shareholders. The shares of the factories will be distributed first to the workers, then to the farmers, then to the general public. Everywhere we are going to have councils, provincial councils, city councils, village councils, and all that. And now that you have this provocative question, I have got to answer it also in a very hard way. We don't make false promises in the elections, at least.
What we say to our people is exactly what we can give them.
But can they change you if they want to?
Can they change any monarch if they want to? It has happened so many times in my country.